What is going on, beautiful people? It is Obscurist Tourist here once again, and today I come to you from Killarney, Ontario, a super cute town on Lake Huron. I've never actually been here, and this isn't my usual content, but because I've never been here and because this town has a lot of history, I thought, why not? And just this way, this is the main drag here in Killarney, which is all of 500 meters of fun. And I air quote that because there's actually not a lot of stuff to see here. But let's show you around anyway. I think it's safe to say that this is one of the original buildings that was built back in the 1800s. Love that old signage up there. And here's one of the few places to actually get some grub in Killarney. Herbert Fisheries. And they claim that it is world famous, though it's in quotes, so it might be self-proclaimed. And I think I'm starting to see why Herbert Fish and Chips is world famous. The Playfair 2 is actually the fishing boat that provides for Herbert. So it's from boat straight to plate. You can't get any more fresh than that. And look at that, the catch of the day. A little lobster. I don't think that's real. Got my Herbert's Fish and Chips here, and it looks and smells absolutely unbelievable. But I must point out, when I order food, I usually never give my full name. I usually use Chris instead of Christian, and this is the exact reason why I never do so. Today I went with Christian, and look at this abomination. Christian. I don't even know if that's a spelling I've ever seen before. And if you find yourself in Killarney and are looking for some rigging, this is the place to come. Although the sign on the door there, that emphatic no, is not very inviting. Well, stumbled upon this little park here, the Nancy Pitfield Memorial Park. And let's give you some history, because Nancy Pitfield seemed to be, well, kind of like Mother Teresa around these parts. She was known as the Angel of Mercy here, and she helped deal with many grave illnesses and accidents without the aid of a doctor. And she helped deliver 512 babies here. Wow. And here's the one church built in 1950. All stone. And I was just about to give up on Killarney being a party town until I saw this guy. This guy is having an absolute blast here on the main strip. Just doesn't care. No cares in the world. He's dancing like nobody's watching. And this is the lone police station here in Killarney. Just a tiny little place. I wouldn't be surprised if there were just a couple cops to patrol this whole town. And weirdly, it looks closed. Didn't know police stations closed. I was really curious about this place. The museum. No name on it. But I assume this is a museum that gives you a history of Killarney, but as the sign says up here, we are out of luck because they're closed for restoration. And that's pretty much how I feel. Little crying guy. I'm sad, buddy. Just like you. This little plaque outside of the museum gives you a brief history of the town and founding of Killarney. And it's much older than I actually thought it to be. People settled here in 1820. And I found this little building closed up, very tight. And I think this is actually connected to the museum on the other side. The Centennial of Confederation Killarney Centennial Museum. And I would be remiss to even pretend that I understood what that means. And what town would be complete without, of course, a post office? And this particular building serves a dual purpose of being the Killarney Municipal Office as well. I'm not sure if I'm trespassing or loitering or both. So let's get out of here. And one more building and service important to any town is the fire department. And Killarney's fire department was established back in 1971, which seems kind of late considering the town has been in existence since 1820. From what I can gather, this is probably some of the early settlers here, because some of the people that have been buried here since the early 1900s. Pretty neat. And here's something you don't see every day. An actual gravestone. Well, I guess you wouldn't call it a gravestone because it's actually made out of wood. Thought I'd show you this old sign from the 1940s, 1950s. Still here, advertising fuel for the boats here in the harbor. Love it. There are some really beautiful houses here in Killarney, but many run down and abandoned places as well. Such is the life here in the north, where the summers are warm and hot and the winters are harsh and can make an isolated place feel absolutely desolate. It's hard to tell which of the two dwellings this is. I could probably think of better places to set up a trailer than beside an old, abandoned, rundown house. But to each their own, I suppose. Do love that mid-century front door, though. And if you're not one of the few hundred or so residents who actually live here, perhaps your main reason of visiting Killarney is this place, the pièce de résistance, the Killarney Mountain Lodge. Flying high, the true north, strong and free, is alive and well up here in the, not the true north, but the north nonetheless. And just look at this place. It's like looking into the past, back into the 1950s, though this was actually built, the main part anyway, was built in the 1930s, and it was predominantly used for corporate retreats back then. And I gotta be honest, I didn't even know that corporate retreats were a thing back in the 1930s. So you, along with I, are doing some hard learning today. This octagon-shaped building, I think it would be safe to assume that it wasn't built until the 1950s, when this entire place underwent an extensive renovation. Let's go take a peek inside. It's empty right now, but just look at this room. The fireplace just ties this whole place together. And you can't beat these views. 360-degree windows overlooking Lake Huron and the marina. Man, I wish I lived in the time of circular couches and circular living rooms. Just the perfect places for conversations. And of course, one thing I long for and is part of my dream house, a sunken living room. One day, if I were to stay at the Killarney Mountain Lodge, this little cabin here, right on the shoreline, would be the one. Flanked by some, I'm not sure what these are called, those little red things right there. I'm not really sure what they're called in other places of the world, but in Ontario, they are called Muskoka chairs. Another thing I should warn you about the Killarney Mountain Lodge is that it's nowhere near a mountain. In fact, it does sit atop the Canadian Shield. Right here, these guys. And more Muskoka chairs. The Canadian Shield, one long swath of rocks that go from east to west here in the north. And up here in the north, we even like to doff our cap to our American brethren in flag form. You ever visit a very old place, vintage property, motels that now have new owners, and a lot of times they do a terrible job of renovating, but the owners here have done an amazing job and have classed up the joint. I really, really love this overhang. It has a very Japanese feel. Protect you whenever it's raining, and for the past 4 days this would have proven to be excellent protection because the weather has sucked up here big time. Just saw this sign, and I'm a sucker for lighthouses, so the lighthouse is that away. Let's check it out. I'm a city boy, so I get a big kick out of wildlife, even if it's a small little leopard frog, which I found here in this pond. Look at him, so cute. Look who I found peeking at, just taking a peek at me. Look at him, he's adorable. Can you tell me which way the lighthouse is? Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, but in particular, bears, as I hike further and further into the bush. Well, a pretty steepish ascent on the Canadian Shield here, that what I assume is overlooking Lake Huron. Perhaps we can get a good overview of how far the lighthouse is. And there she is in the distance, way over there. That is one of 2 lighthouses that exist in this area, both built in the 1860s and manned by one lighthouse keeper. Way back then, this was an extremely secluded land and place. And in many ways it still is today. There's only one real road in. And the lighthouse keeper back then would have traveled to and from both lighthouses using just a boat. We're talking a very isolated life here, and probably dangerous, because even now There are daily bear sightings around here, so tread lightly, watch your step, and avoid cubs. And I just found something I haven't seen in a very, very long time. A blueberry patch. Check this out. Look at these little guys. I used to pick these with my pops back when we had a cottage. Nice big one right there. You gotta come deep into the forest to find these now. A gold mine of sorts, a blue mine. The sweetest of berries. And I've seen various plots of land around Killarney serving as boat graveyards. And I guess if you've got nowhere else to put a boat, and I suppose there aren't too many options in which to put old boats when you've stopped using them, or have just simply run out of money to continue to use it. Because anyone who has owned a boat knows boats are complete money pits.
No plans on the option.
This boat still looks pretty seaworthy, but for one reason or another, here it sits, and from what I've heard, it's been sitting here for a few decades, so I don't think that is going to be repatriated back to the sea anytime soon. Well guys, that's it for me here in Killarney, Ontario. And as you can see, I made it a little bit closer to the lighthouse. Didn't quite make it, so perhaps we will save that for next time. I hope you enjoyed the tour, an outsider's view, a visitor's view, an obscurist tourist view of this small northern Ontario town. For now, it's Obscurist Tourist saying, so long, stay safe. And until our next adventure, I'm getting into the drink.